Greetings and welcome to another episode coming to you from the Thought Exchange Cafe here on Spotify. Here at the Thought Exchange Cafe, we bring you ordinary community people doing extraordinary things in our community to bring about enlightenment, not entertainment, but education. We bring you our oracles, those folks that you would consider to be elderly or retired. However, they are a world of knowledge. They're a walking library. They're also people that we can go back to and talk to and reference about what is happening in today's societal, in today's world, with all the news and all those things that we hear about that is happening and all the changes that are occurring right before our eyes. They've been through it and they're still here to talk about it. So instead of going to the library and instead of going to Google, why not just go to one of our oracles, those that are 50, 60, 70, and 80 that are still amongst us, and ask them some real key questions. And one of those questions may be, how did you overcome all the changes to still be here today and smiling? Could you give us some of that information that we can use in today's times in order to overcome what is happening right now? As well as we bring you our youths from the community just as well. I'm very excited about that because there are some youth in our community that are doing some amazing things that are not following that wide path. There are some youth in our community that are just not sitting at home playing video games and doing nothing. They are deciding their future by learning. Keep educating yourself. And they are using that key well. So we're going to be bringing them to you just as well to share with you and some of those folks that will resonate with them a whole lot better than they can resonate with us, those folks that they say, you're OG. You don't understand what's happening in today's time. However, I beg to differ that. My name is Tony Davis, and I will be your host. I would like to let you know that in our next episode coming up, we're going to have in our audience Reverend Anthony Hamby and First Lady Sandra Hamby. So I look forward to you joining us for that show because it's going to be an interesting conversation. And the conversation is going to be talking about faith, talking about God and the Creator. So, once again, join me for the next episode with Reverend Anthony Hamby and Sandra Hamby. Tonight's episode is titled Coming Out of the Depths of Darkness. And why did I title this episode Coming Out of the Depths of Darkness? I believe that a lot of us who are here today have walked through some dark places in order to get to the light, but understanding just as well too that when they talk about that saying that says there's light at the end of the tunnel, but you got to keep on moving. You got to find your way through that darkness. I'm going to talk about anger, sadness, depression, addiction, and running from self, incarceration, houses of correction, and what that meaning is. What does correction mean, and how it got twisted and turned around to mean something else. And last but not least, overcoming statistics and what it means to overcome the statistics that have been placed upon you. So I want to get right into it. And anger, sadness, depression, and addiction, running from self. And I can actually talk about that because at one point in time, that person was me. I was angry at self because I didn't know what else to do. And not only that, as a young man, I was searching for my place in this big world, in this big space. And how do I, how do I fit in? What is my purpose? What is the goal in life? As a young man, I remember growing up and experiencing living in Jamaica Plain projects as a little kid. And at that particular time, I talked about this on another episode, on a previous episode, about being bullied, ran to school from school, and having to protect my brother, to make sure that he can get home, make sure he can get to the bus, and just making sure that he was protected. And that experience for me played a very vital role in my formative years, as well as I can also remember not all the other kids having ice creams and things like that. And my mom couldn't afford it because she was on welfare. She relied on the state system to provide because that's all they was giving us, because that's all they kind of showed us, that this is all that you can get. This is all that you can get. And keep in mind, this is back in the 70s, right? And in the 70s, if you were, if you were born in those times, you would understand what I'm talking about, as well as living in the projects. So, you know, growing up, I can remember being angry. I can remember being depressed. I can remember being sad and just wanting to feel some normalcy in my life. And as a young man, I was living in this dark space in my mind because I rarely had friends. But today I understand why I didn't have those friends, because they weren't really friends. And even though they were just kids, that's what they were. They were kids, and kids do what kids are taught to do, because a lot of things are learned behavior. A lot of things we learn through watching. We learn through what was said to us, but more so by watching. So we started to mimic those people. We started to mimic those things that we were around. And that's what they was talking about, your surroundings, your society. And there's a saying that says you are the sum of the five people that you hang around the most. And those are, once again, that was my formative years. But in those formative years, I was subject to having to walk through that dark place, not knowing that back then that it was forming me for who I am today and who I am still becoming. There's a quote that I would like to read you, and the quote is: being judged. I am ascending. I'm rising. If you judge me now, you are judging me prematurely. I have not revealed all my stuff yet. And if someone is judging you today, don't worry about it. They're judging you prematurely because you haven't revealed all your stuff yet. You are still in growth mode. You are still in ascending mode. And ascending means rising higher. In the midst of rising higher, guess what? We're going to hit some turbulence. And that turbulence, like an airplane, I never ridden or flew on an airplane. No, I haven't. Not as of yet, though, but I will get the opportunity one day, God spare life. And in life we're going to hit some turbulent times, but just because that plane hit some turbulent times, that plane pushes through. They from what you can see on the movies and those things that they tell you about aviation and things of that nature. You're gonna push that throttle a little bit more, right? And you got to just push through those clouds. You got to push through that turbulence, and that's the same thing in life. Pushing through that turbulence, and sometimes pushing through the turbulence is not an easy thing. And some of the things that may be turbulence is that anger, self-doubt, loneliness, fear. And for me, I learned that fear is false evidence appearing real. However, it takes time in really getting over a fear. And I heard another quote that says, in order for the fear to disappear, you have to face that fear head on. And once you face the fear, there is no more fear. And that is something that I had to begin to practice, and that is practicing facing those fears. Facing, and one of the biggest fears I had was the fear of success. And then it was the fear of the unknown because I had become so comfortable in the space of safety, but it really wasn't safety because I wasn't growing. I wasn't going anywhere. I wanted to grow, but I was too afraid to grow. And why was I too afraid to grow? Because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want people to see me fail because they would laugh at me. They would shun me. And those feelings and those emotions and those pictures were from when I was a little boy. I was holding on to those past hurts, those past traumas, and I was allowing those past hurts and those past traumas to be my present day. And as long as I held on to those past traumas and those past hurts, I was afraid to try anything new because in my mind was saying, people are watching you. People are going to laugh at you. And then my mind would say, well, what if you fail? That's too hard. You can't accomplish that. So those were those were limited beliefs that were brought upon me from the exterior world. But also, I had to come to a point where I had to stop believing that those things were too hard. And I had to start saying to myself, Tony, have you even tried it? No, I didn't even try it. So I had already failed. Excuse me. I had already failed in my mind. And I wasn't growing. I wasn't going nowhere. And I was stuck in that place for a long time. But also by being stuck in that place, I started to do things that were not of me. And one of those things I started doing was I started I started smoking marijuana. Now, there's nothing wrong with smoking marijuana if you can handle it. Okay, it's legal today for some, and everyone is smoking it just because it's legal. But just because it's legal doesn't mean that it's good for you. So I'm not advocating for. I'm not advocating for it, and I'm not advocating against it either. I just know for me as a young man, I was only smoking the marijuana to suppress those limited beliefs, to suppress those emotions and the fears. That's why I was smoking. And then the smoking turned into drinking. The drinking turned into an addiction to substances. And that led to a whole different life, a whole different life. And I was definitely caught up in the depths of darkness, being in the depths of the addiction. And that addiction, what it did for me was it allowed me to run. to hide, to stay in the shadows. But I didn't realize either that when I thought I was in the shadows, I was in the light because everybody could see me. And as someone said to me, "You think you're invisible, huh?" The invisible man coming through. But in reality, everybody was seeing me much better than I was seeing myself. And that dark place became a comfortable place. And why did it become a comfortable place? It became a comfortable place because I didn't have to I didn't have to deal with me. I didn't have to deal with those feelings and those emotions that I was running from. All I had to do was keep using, keep drinking, keep suppressing. But in the midst of the continuous using, I was I was falling deeper and deeper into that dark pit. I had a conversation with a friend of mine today who I haven't spoke with in quite a while. And we was talking today, and he said, "Hey Tony, yeah, we have to get together and start seeing each other a little bit more." And he says, I've been watching your YouTube videos, and we need to get together and talk a little bit more about that. Because yes, I do. I have a YouTube channel just as well, Tony Davis Public Speaker, where on this channel I talk about motivation, inspiration, and some self-guidance, but also sharing my experience, strength, and hope with others, and allowing those others to come back and share their experience and strength and hope with me because it helps me to develop greater coping mechanisms. Because coming back from an addictive state doesn't mean, right, that you're cured. I'm never going to be cured. No, I'm always going to be sick and sicker than others. And by knowing that, then there's some things I have to do in order to stay well, in order to stay on this journey of ascension upward. And one of those things that I had to learn to do was to begin to say no to some things in order to say yes to some greater things. I'll say that again. I had to begin to say no to some things to say yes to some greater things. The mind will always want to go back to default mode and say, well, things are kind of tough, ain't they? You got a business, but it's not thriving like that next man's business. They're making multi-million dollars, and look at you. That could be somewhat depressing, can it? Because I own a small construction company, right? And looking around, sometime you see these other bigger construction companies. You say, man, I want to be like that. But guess what? I'm judging myself then. I don't have to be like them. I don't have to. I just have to be grateful for what I have because I am not homeless. I am not begging, borrowing, or stealing from anyone. No. Are my needs met? Yes, they are. So why should I compare? Because I don't know what they're going through in order to maintain what they have. Because I can imagine only what they're going through because I know what I'm going through maintaining what I have. But yet still, gratitude and appreciation. I heard another quote that says, what you appreciate appreciates. So I appreciate what I have. Okay. And, you know, going through the changes of the bills of this to that, right? That could bring about some what in the heck am I doing? I'm living to the best of my ability. I'm living one day at a time. I'm living one moment at a time, but I'm living. When so many wish they could be or would like to be where I am right now. at this moment with everything that I got going on. All right. And what I got going on ain't much. It really ain't much. It's only much in my mind. Now, I had another individual say to me, "Hey, Tony, a little bit of focus goes a long way. All you got to do is really focus, man, on one thing at a time and watch how you progress." And lo and behold, right, I begin to focus on one thing at a time. And I started making some real accomplishment. I started making some real strides. I started coming up out of that self anger, that sadness, that depression, and the addictive state. Once again, it's always going to be there if I allow it to be there. If I pick it up, then it controls me. You see, if I pick it up, then it controls me. But anyway, I was having this conversation, and we was talking about those things that we have both been through. And, we have some common places that we walk. And we started talking about God and what God has done for us, where God has brought us out of. God brought us out of the depths of darkness because when we talk about that, the statistics, right? And I'm moving a little bit forward, but we start talking about those statistics at a particular time, and even still today, right? They have, certain people put certain lifespans on your life because of where you live. Yes, it's still there. And that's why they do statistics. But we started talking about why we were chosen. Why were we chosen to still be here today? Why were we chosen? Why were we saved to serve out of everything that we put ourselves through, out of everything that we put others through? Why God brought us out? Because, right, the reality of it is that, yeah, we either could have been in Forest Hill Cemetery, we could have been on Methadone Mile, we could have been, um, you know, in somebody's halfway house or in somebody's prison cell for life, right? But that was not the goal for it. That was not the goal. That was not God's purpose for us. That was not God's purpose. God has a greater purpose. And that is something that I had to come into a realization of, that God got a greater purpose for me. And everything that I was going through was preparing me for where I am right now. And if you have went through some things and you're still going through some things, guess what? It's those things are shaping you, because somebody else is going to come along and ask you for some help, some guidance. Somebody else is going to come along and ask you to help them to understand on what to do. And you're going to have the best education there is. Your education exceeds a MBA, a doctorate. Why? Because you have life living education. You're not coming from theory. You're not coming from a book or a slideshow. You're coming from something that you lived through. You see? So you have many degrees. I have many degrees. They're just not degrees from prestigious universities. Even though through everything I went through, I was blessed to be able to attend Wentworth and MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where I'm certified for persuasive communication, critical thinking in order to enhance the message. And here's a kid coming from the projects. Here's a kid coming from low self esteem, doubt, anger, and fear. of the unknown. And what did I have to do in order to enroll or just go ahead and sign up for Wentworth or MIT? I had to overcome the fear. I had to overcome that false evidence appearing real. And another thing that I said to myself is that if this individual over here that looks nothing like me can do it, then I can do it too. Okay, then I can do it too. What's the worst can happen? I can learn something a lot more than what I what I had, because what I had was pretty good if I would have utilized it right, but I wasn't utilizing it. And like they say that it's one thing to learn something, but it's another thing to apply it, because applied knowledge is power. When you apply those things that you learn, it becomes power. When I begin to apply those things that I had learned, I started seeing myself in a different light. I started seeing myself that, no, let me say that the light got brighter. The light got brighter. And I can see that light at the end of the tunnel, but I had to keep on pushing forward. I had to keep on shoveling dirt out the way. I had to keep on picking up boulders and moving them boulders out the way. I had to continue to clear the field in order to plant some good seed and to get some good fruit back. And there's a saying that said, in order to get good fruit, you got to have some good roots. I want to read you another quote here. And let's see where we at. Sorry. But the quote talks about not being able to, not, here we go. Man once said, you cannot share what the seed looks like before it becomes a tree. You cannot share what the seed looks like before it becomes a tree. You have to plant that seed, because what I've learned about planting seeds is that when you put that seed, when you dig into the ground and if you ever done any gardening, if you haven't done any gardening, I would suggest that take up a little gardening. Even if you just get you a little styrofoam cup, put some dirt in it, and go and grab you a seed, right? And put that seed in it and watch how it begins to grow over time. But you have to water that seed. You have to make sure that you pick the those things that are no good, the weed out, in order for that seed to begin to have some good root and to grow upward. Ascending. See, we going back to that ascending, coming out of the darkness, coming out of the depths of darkness. But see, you have to plant a seed first. And then planting that seed, once again, we gotta go and we gotta dig a hole in the ground. We gotta excavate, right? We gotta excavate. And in excavating, what are we doing? We're removing something, right? A negative thought. We're removing some self sabotage, right? We're removing some of that internal pain. And sometimes removing internal pain is hard to do because we become so used to that pain, right? That we become so used to living in that pain that it's unfamiliar living without it. And I, for one, can definitely talk about not wanting to get rid of that pain because that pain became normal to me. But in the midst of that pain becoming normal to me, guess what? I was still caught up in the darkness. I couldn't ascend. I couldn't grow forward and I couldn't grow downward. As above, so below. I couldn't plant no good roots. I couldn't build a good foundation. And getting back to planting this seed, coming up out of the depths of darkness, right? When you excavate and you put that seed down in that hole, what's the next thing that you do? You got to put that dirt back over it. You got to cover it up. And then you got to water it. But once you cover that seed up, it is now, excuse me, it is now covered in darkness. There's no light. There's no light. But something's happening to that seed in that dark place, right? That seed, after a while, right? That seed starts to kind of crack open a little bit. Can you imagine it? Imagine a seed now. And imagine yourself being that seed. Imagine it. Imagine being in this dark place, right? And something starts happening to you. You start feeling a little bit funny. You start feeling a little bit out of place now, right? It's dark in here. But in the midst of that darkness, you start to open up. And in that opening up process, right, it hurts because you see you're shedding something. You're shedding that skin of that seed that's holding that seed this way. But even that skin was preserving the seed. But once that seed starts to take root and grow, what happens? It begins to move that soil out the way. So a seed, when it begins to grow, when it starts to grow as a root, the roots have these sharp points at the end, right? Going downward. So that way, once it go down, it can spread the earth. It can move whatever out of its way. Talking about stones and these animals and these things that live up on the ground that do their job, worms and other things like that, right? But it moves it out the way. And once it moves it out the way and it takes roots and grow, it starts to grow upward now. And once it starts to go upward, what do you start seeing happening in that soil? That soil starts to open up a little bit at a time, like that spider web. And that's the same thing that happens with those of us who have came from out of the depths of the darkness. When we begin to allow ourselves to be watered by someone else, when we begin to move out of our own way, coming out of that anger, coming out of depression, coming out of self sabotage and sadness, and start looking at those things that we can be grateful for, all of a sudden, poof, we break ground. And that little seedling, that little leaf, or that little root that looks like this starts coming out the ground, and then all of a sudden it starts to rise. And when it starts to rise and it starts to see that sunlight hit it, that daylight hit it, it starts to grow exponentially. And that was me. That was me. But not just me, you as well too. And it's not easy coming up out of the depths of darkness because sometimes the light can be too bright, especially when you don't understand what true light is. That the true light is that which is in you, that which you have been created to do. Yes, we was in the darkness, coming out of the depths of darkness. But we had to be in that dark place for a reason and for a purpose. And in becoming and in understanding that purpose, we talked about being judged. And I'm going to read this again. right? You have no responsibility to live up to what other people think you ought to accomplish. Being judged. I am ascending, I'm rising. If you judge me now, you are judging me prematurely. I have not revealed all my stuff yet. The light, when we come up out of that dark place, is something that is unusual because we've been in that dark place for so long. And it begins to feel good. It begins to feel comfortable. It begins to feel like we should have been here a long time. And there's a book called Becoming Supernatural. And I forget the author's name, right? And he talks about the mind. He talks about, you know, being in a loop, that loop of thinking and feeling and thinking in the past. And that also reminds me of The Lion King. I'm sure everybody's seen The Lion King when Simba, he was with the monkey, and Simba had ran away from home because something had happened that was very traumatic. And the monkey had the stick, and the monkey swung the stick, and he didn't move, and boop, it hit him. And Simba was like, "What the heck is going on here?" And then the monkey said, "Okay, we're gonna do this again," until he learned to duck. And once the monkey swung the stick and Simba ducked, what did the monkey say? The monkey said, "It is in the past. It is all gone now. Live your present day. For you are now have come out of the depths of darkness into the light." And coming into the light, we're going to meet some challenges. We're going to meet some obstacles that's going to be put in front of us. And I had to learn to stop looking at the obstacle as something that was there to harm me, to hold me back. And yes, it reminds me of some past things, and those past feelings and those past emotions do they best to come back and to haunt me in my present day. But one thing I have to remember, going back to those coping mechanisms, is that was then, but it don't have to be now. It don't have to be now. Let me do something different today than I did that brought those feelings and those emotions on back then, cause and effect. And I have to ask myself a question. What did I do then that I'm not doing today? And that helps a great deal, you see, because in the light, it's bright. And I had to learn that I'm bright. I'm not dark. I used to have this saying that I said that I may not be the brightest bulb in the lamp, but I'm also not the darkest. Right? It was a good quote for then, or a good saying for then. However, I want to believe that I'm a bright light in the midst of the darkness. Somebody is watching me. Somebody is watching you. They may not be saying anything, but they're looking to you to help bring them up out of the darkness. And I was talking to someone over at the local Home Depot, and we was talking about, and it was a young person, and we was talking about them sharing their experience, strength, and hope with another young person. And they said to me, if they do not want to learn, then what's the use of me giving them my time? And that reminded me of a quote from the Bible. And this quote goes deeper than the Bible. It talks about casting your pearls among swine. So many times we learn new things and we want to share with others. I know a lot of times I was learning these new things and my neurons were firing ping 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 ping, and I felt so good. I wanted others to feel just as good as I. So I was wanted to share that information. And they looked at me and they said, "Not today, Tony." But I kept wanting to share this information with them. But I didn't realize that I was actually pushing them away. I was actually closing their minds to receiving it because I was pushing it. There's this book called the Kybalion by the Three Initiates, and it's an amazing book, and it's a small read. And I'll say that again: the Kybalion by the Three Initiates. And this amazing book, it talks about frequency, energy, and vibration. But it has a saying in the book that says, "The lips of wisdom are closed except unto the ears of understanding." And for me, that kind of hit me in a different way. It hit different. Let me say that. Because here I am wanting to share some knowledge and some information. But what happened when information and knowledge was being sent my way? I have to remember that at a particular time, I was not open either. Openness is like going back to that planting that seed. You got to plant the seed, put it in that dirt, and leave it there and water it. Water it every so often. Leave it in a place where it's going to catch some sunshine, where it's going to grow. Not in a too damp area or too dry area. Because once you dry out the soil, that seed can't grow. And in learning that and in understanding what it was, share your information, but you don't have to keep sharing. Share what you think is best and then just move forward. You've done your job. And at the same time, I had to remember too that I can share this information, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't want to know how much you know until they know that you care. Once they find out that you care, then they're going to open up for you. And when they open up for you, that's when you can plant. That's when you can water a little bit more. And these are things that I've learned over time. Out of the darkness, coming out of the darkness. You know, there's a in I say a lot of quotes and I talk about or I share a lot of things that I've learned. And I share these things that I've learned because they have helped me. And they may help you, they may not. But I don't want to be afraid, as I was before, to share something with someone or allow someone to share something with me that's going to help me to come up out of the darkness, to continue to be a light in the midst of a dark place. Because that dark place starts in the mind. That dark place starts in my thought processes. That dark place starts with when I choose to go and suppress my feelings and my emotions with some exterior substance or some exterior thing. Because those things don't last long, because those feelings and those emotions are going to come back. And I have to continuously be ready. And like they talk about the addictive cycle. And the addictive cycle can be many things. Many things. It could be addicted to food, addicted to money, addicted to social media, addicted to um, driving fast, addicted to food and a whole bunch of other things, shopping, right? In order to overcome that addiction, whatever it may be, we have to develop some coping mechanisms. We have to develop something from within, because as within, so without. What you're feeling within is definitely going to be projected outward. Okay. If you're feeling bad on the inside, guess what? You may think people don't see it, but people are going to see it because you're projecting it outward. Finding coping mechanisms and holding on to those and holding on to them, and not just holding on to them, but applying them in your life. Because applied knowledge, once again, is power. So, in ending this, overcoming statistics, and we talked about the statistics, excuse me, earlier on. In overcoming the statistics today, today I'm a business owner. I'm a teacher. I'm a facilitator. I'm a board member. I'm a productive, sovereign member of my community. And you heard I didn't say citizen. And there's a reason why I didn't say citizen. I said sovereign, right? Because in coming up out of the darkness and into the light, a lot of things are starting, and a lot of things were being revealed to me. Just like I can imagine all the things that may have been revealed to you. And I would love for you to share what has been revealed to you in the comments. Send in your comments. I urge you to send in your comments because your comments are so important, because you may have been through something other than those things I've described on this show, but you overcame them because you're still here. And someone else is going to go through that same thing and not know how to overcome it or what to look for, how to avoid the pitfalls. And your comment or comments, which I will definitely, if you comment, I'm going to talk about your comment on my show, because I don't know who's listening. I don't know who's going through what. But guess what? Everybody's going through something right now. Everybody. And it don't have to be the same. I don't care how small it is, you're still going through something. Okay? And we're not unique because somebody else have went through it. Like they say, if you want to know something or you want to do something, right? What's the best thing to do? Pick up a book, because somebody wrote about it. Pick up a book. And that's why your comments are so important, because I can share your comment with someone else, and that comment might help someone else. You might help someone else come up out of the depths of darkness and begin to see the light. And we can get up in the morning but still be in the darkness in the mind. Each one teach one, each one reach one. And as I said in the beginning, this is not entertainment. This is edutainment, education, right? And I don't mind being vulnerable and telling you about my experiences. Why? Because those experiences were for me, but they were not just for me. See, part of my talent and part of my skill is being able to help other people, men, women, young men, young women, to see some things that I've been through already. And I'm still living them, but I'm living differently with a different mindset today. Because coming out of the depths of darkness, when you come out of the depths of darkness, yeah, the light is scary at first, but then that light becomes your pathway to ascension, a upward movement. Yes, we're gonna hit some pitfalls. Yes, we're gonna get to some crossroads and some forks at the road. But guess what? We're gonna have enough inner fortitude, right, to ask somebody the question. I'm caught at these crossroads and I don't know what to do. Or we're gonna have enough in us to go somewhere and sit down and pray. Ho, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Go somewhere, sit down and pray. Meditate and wait for the answer. Because I learned that when I was moving fast, like that conveyor belt, there were so many things I was missing and so many things I was losing out on because I was making these quick decisions and not allowing myself to think about it for a moment, not using my critical thinking skills that were given to me from birth. But when I begin to use those inner things within me and listen to that inner voice as well as intuition, because intuition is a voice, I begin to see that I don't have to make a quick decision. And let me slow down for a minute. Let me not become overwhelmed because I knew that if I make a quick decision and it wasn't right, what was going to happen. So I knew the effect. See? And what was the cause? The cause was me making that quick decision. See, cause and effect. So I had to learn how to slow down. I had to learn how to slow down. In closing, in closing, I want to urge you to take a moment because you're a light. You're a lighthouse. You're a guide. And whatever you've been through and whatever you're going through right now, if you're going through something, trust in a higher source and believe that you are still here for a reason and for a purpose. You may have been in the dark for a while, right? And you still might be in that dark place. But when you begin to, if you can, if you can, think about that seed. And when they talk about faith, that mustard seed, a mustard seed is so small. Have that much faith in you, in you, because you were created for a reason and for a much bigger purpose and a much bigger reason. And in the darkness, there's some great pictures that have been developed in the darkness. And when that picture comes up out of the dark, some of those pictures have sold for millions of dollars. Some of those pictures stand today as historical pictures with some great meaning to them that have given meaning to others' lives. They brought about an inner prosperity, or inner growth, just from a picture that was developed in the dark. They came to the light. Allow yourself to be that picture. No longer am I afraid of the dark because the dark can't harm me. The dark can only help me grow by believing that I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, just like there's the sun above the clouds. And just like day precedes night, that light is going to shine. It's going to shine. There's going to be some storms, but guess what? Storms don't come to destroy. Storms don't come to just drown things out. Some storms come to show you how resilient you are, as well as some storms come to move some things out the way so you have an easier path. Now, we don't always want the easier path because we can't learn nothing. We don't get strong by going through that easy path. Because when we do hit a rough patch, we're not going to know what to do. So embrace the storm, embrace the darkness, but also allow yourself to grow them roots that are within you so you can ascend. And in closing, I just want to share a couple of things with you that I like to share. And one thing is what I've started doing is journaling. And I've been journaling for the last couple of years. And I talk about this at the end of almost every episode. Journaling has helped me to tap into my inner self. Journaling has helped me to see clearly some of those things that I couldn't see clear. And once I began to write them down, and someone said, all you got to do is write some stuff down. Once you write it down, guess what? You're going to start seeing it a lot more clearer. Because if we don't write it down, we're going to forget it later on down the line. Be like, what was I thinking about? So I begin to write it down. And as writing it down, I begin to put in here my feelings, my emotions, my thoughts. And yeah, I'm a much better individual today because now I've become more emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent. So I just urge you, if you have not started journaling, to begin to journal. Even if you just say, good morning to myself, I'm feeling pretty good and I appreciate what God has given me. Or if you don't believe in God, I appreciate just being here today, and set it down, but stay consistent. Another book that I'm recommending is Become Who You Were Meant to Be by the late Dr. Miles Monroe, a devotional for fulfilling your purpose and maximizing your potential. It's an awesome read. And last but not least, Origins, a short etymological dictionary of modern English. Eric Partridge. I hope I said that right. Etymological. And I would urge you to, if you don't get these books in your journal, but I would urge you to get this dictionary, because this dictionary is going to teach you about words, right? It's going to teach you about their meanings in a greater depth than the dictionary or what you were taught in school. Why? Because it's those words that we speak to ourselves either going to be empowering, right? Or it's going to put you in a spiral, because it's the words that we speak to ourselves. And as they talk about, words are powerful, very powerful, but it all starts with you, because it had to start with me, right? And when I begin to look up certain words and truly find out what they mean beyond the dictionary, I was able to get beyond some of those self sabotaging beliefs because I began to understand what those words meant for myself. So I'm just urging you to, pick up a book every now and then. Excuse me. Keep educating yourself. Fear, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. So once again, thank you for sharing your time with me. And time is valuable. We can always lose money and get it back, but our time, we cannot get that back. Use your time wisely. Allow your time because your time is one of your greatest assets, as well as your most valuable real estate. You know what that is? I hope you didn't say your house or your car or your bank account. Maybe you did, because maybe it is. But your most valuable real estate is your mind. Because if you don't train your mind or program your mind, somebody else will train it for you. My name is Tony Davis, coming to you from the Thought Exchange Cafe. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode when we have as our guest the Reverend Bishop Anthony Hamby and First Lady Sandra Hamby. So once again, thank you for joining me on the Thought Exchange Cafe. I look forward to seeing you again soon. And tune in, but just don't tune in. Support me here on Spotify, support this channel, and send in your comments. Thank you so much.